All right, here's my setup. Let me back up a little bit. So this table is 40 wide by 60 long, and the top is actually, I made a torsion box top for it. It's just got a 1/2 inch MDF in like a grid pattern inside of it with 1/2 inch Baltic birch on the top and bottom. And then the legs are just stuff I got on Amazon. They're super stout though. They're pretty impressive. Made my life a little easier too. And then some just basic casters from Home Depot. But yeah, so again, it's my machine's the Lead 1010, so it's 1 meter square. The only thing is that let me show you. The X stepper hangs over, I don't know, 2-3 inches. These hang over probably 4 inches. And then on the other side, that hangs over just a little bit. If I was gonna do this over again, I would have made the table probably 48 wide. But it just worked out this way as far as getting the most out of the plywood. Because the supplier near me, this really high quality Baltic birch comes in 5 foot square. Some weird metric measurement, but it just worked out best this way. But I mean, it's not like it's extreme, you know, it's hanging over by, on this side, maybe a little over 1 inch. So it's not too bad. The whole thing's mounted on, I used rubber feet. There's a bunch of them. There's a dozen of these rubber feet underneath it. A lot of people bolt the machine down, but I like the idea of using these because it just kind of quiets the whole thing. You're not, you know, vibrating the entire table. It's kind of like shock mounting rubber mounting a 4-stroke motor kind of a thing. What else? Up here, yeah, my little cheapy Amazon $20-some-odd monitor mount, which is super beefy. That's like an 1/8 inch steel bracket that it's mounted to that comes with it. I just ran some leg screws in there. But yeah, so I'm putting a keyboard tray here, and that's next on my agenda. Actually, when I was at the store, that's one of the things I was buying was a keyboard tray. Under here, that's the fine Turbo 1 vacuum. The Turbo 2 is a total ripoff. It's the exact same vacuum, but the capacity of it is like another 2 gallons or something, and it's on Amazon. It was like, this was 300 I think, or 280, and the other one's like almost $500. And with the Dust Deputy, you're not collecting hardly anything in here, so I just got the small one. And anyway, so that's the Dust Deputy. That's a 5-gallon bucket. I put a hole in the bottom shelf of the table. You can see the bottom of it down there. I did all the math, and it clears the ground by about 1.5 inches, something like that. And then on the far end there is the inner bucket from the Dust Deputy, because I'm not putting it on casters, and I use that for my water setup, which is some simple nylon fasteners on top for the, you know, inlet and outlet. And there's a aquarium pump in there, and I'm using 25% antifreeze. The rest of it's water and a cap full of bleach. They say to put a little tiny bit of bleach in there. It just cuts down on how frequently you have to change the water out. So, and then that's just the water line itself is just tubing, PVC tubing from Home Depot that fits the fittings on the spindle exactly. And I've had no leaks, and these are really I could loosen them with my fingers right now. I just spun them on there because I've heard horror stories. If you tighten them up too much, the way the fittings are so precisely machined that you'll cut the tubing. So yeah, like I could back these off by hand, but I've had no leaks. I packed this all up with paper towels and let it run for like an hour, and nothing, absolutely nothing. And one thing nice, the connector is completely waterproof. It's a big silicone rubber plug that pushes down in there, and when you tighten it, it's meant for if you have spillage here, it won't do anything funny. So that's kind of a nice deal. And this is an 800 watt spindle, 65 millimeter. This is a router mount I got from Chris Laidlaw, and he's on bought this on Amazon. Super cool dude. He's all over the Open Builds forums. I just emailed him and said, hey, I just ordered a router mount from you on Amazon, and I need it to be 65 millimeters, and it needs to go on my Lead 1010 machine, and I need at least 0.6 inches between the spindle and the extrusion for this particular dust shoe. And he knew everything that I was talking about, and he's in California. I ordered it, and it was on my doorstep in 3 days. Pretty impressive. And this router mount is like super high quality. I don't know how thick it is. It's thicker than 1/4 inch. I don't know what he's using, but it's all 6061, like totally awesome machining, as you can tell in the pictures. And then this is that Kent CNC dust shoe, really nice. Here's the brush for it, and I absolutely love this. First of all, it's got just a bolt. It's like an 832 or something like that, and you just very light torque on you just turn up a ball driver, locks it on there like solid. But this has neodyms in it, 3 of them, and they're proud of the surface just a little bit. So you literally just go like that, and that's it. And it's on magnets, so if it hits something, it can kind of jar itself loose instead of just breaking the whole thing. But when I ordered mine, I bought an extra plate. He calls it a spacer, but it's this bottom part with no brush on it. So if you're using long bits, you can extend the brush down. But what's nice about it is this has the groove milled in it for a brush. So on my spacer, it's gonna be a long video. On my spacer, I put tape on the neodyms just in case steel dust got on it. On the spacer, the groove is milled in there. So I bought some brush material on Amazon, and if I break that one, I can just use shoe glue or whatever and glue the brush I have and have another one. And the spacer, I think he charges like $20 for it, something like that. So not too bad. Anyway, so there's my water, the Dust Deputy. And like I was telling you, one thing nice about the Dust Deputy is it comes with all those fittings, the black hose and 2 elbows, hose clamps. They even give you O-rings to help seal if you have an odd shaped port. And on the fine vacuum, it happens to have a slot at the top for like a click-in connector, and the O-ring, you just slide it up to it and it closes off that little bit of gap. So they really are thinking ahead on certain things like that. And my orange hose is a rigid. They're like professional line, the heavy duty hose that they sell. It was cheap, and it came with the fitting that's going into the Kent CNC dust shoe. Fits it perfectly, and it fits into the port on the Dust Deputy perfectly. And again, I found all this out ahead of time from watching forums, because people that are buying those generic ones, it's like some weird odd size, and like all these connectors would butt up against it and not slide over it, if you know what I mean. And then they're having to use like those rubber butt join connectors that you would use for maybe like PVC pipe, you know, with hose clamps, and it's big, kind of like a disaster. And with the Dust Deputy setup, it just, everything just fits and literally just slips together. And I'm using the hose clamp that came with the Dust Deputy on the end of that, just because the rigid hose end is hard plastic and the Dust Deputy is rigid plastic too. So I just slid it on there as far as I could go and just put their hose clamp on there. I can't pull it off with my hand, plus it's vacuum, so it's trying to keep itself on there anyway. So again, I just got an aquarium pump in the bottom of this. I made sure I got one that would pull, they go by like feet of water lift or whatever, and this one was rated at 10 feet, and I tested it as high as I could put the water line in my ceiling in my basement, and it's I would guess probably 9 feet total from the floor to the ceiling, and then back down into my utility tub by my washer and dryer. And when I turned the pump on, water came out of the other end within like a second. I mean, it just shot through the tubing like it was nothing. So I think that's underrated a little bit on the power of it. And it's got a valve on the front where you can adjust the flow rate too, which is kind of cool. And that's like totally silent. You can't even hear it. It just kind of hums. Probably just the bucket vibrating. It's got suction cups on the bottom of the pump. Under here, since the drawer slides in and out, I do some Rube Goldberg stuff with a couple of springs and some clips and stuff. And so when the door opens and closes, I don't get too much cable sag under here, because I don't want stuff to snag on things when I shut the drawer. What else? My enclosure, I just made this drawer. It's just a 1/4 inch piece of acrylic from Home Depot for the lid, and some weather strip and some hinges, and 2 120 millimeter computer fans, filter screens. I got all this stuff on Amazon. There's actually 2 filter screens here for the inlet, and then, you know, that one blows back out. And this thing moves a lot of air. Even with the VFDs, they say not to mount them horizontally for cooling purposes, because there's a fan up here, and you want heat, obviously rises. And especially if you're in an enclosure, you need a lot of ventilation going around it. And I shot my temperature gun at this. And believe it or not, it was the coolest component out of everything in here. Like my controller, my power supply, and my PC were all like 85, 90 degrees, and this thing was like 70, because this fan's blowing right at it. And I left the cover off the bottom so air would go straight in and just, you know, circulate through. Then there's a fan up here and it just blows out. So that's all good to go. Using aviation plugs here. My buddy made me this acrylic panel on his laser cutter so I know what's what. It was all nice. I bought all shielded cable. It wasn't expensive, because the stuff you're going to get in your kit is going to be just basic wire, and you probably don't want to use that. So that's what this is. These are all my ground to everything. I mean, everything is grounded. My line that goes to the relay, pull this out. The line that goes to my relay right here, that's actually controlled by G-code, believe it or not. That's even shielded. You know, it's going near the vacuum cleaner. I just don't want any, you know, surprises. My e-stop is shielded cable, you know, so all that stuff, steppers, limit switches, all that stuff. That's what all these little tiny green wires are, going to this common screw. And then the main lead coming off of it is going to a screw on the power supply to go to 110 ground. So it's all safe. And I guess VFDs are kind of noisy, so with cabling near the VFD and stuff like that, I just figured I would avoid all that. And then that's a micro PC. That thing is tiny, as you can tell. It's like 5 inches square. I got that on Amazon. It runs at like 2.5 gigahertz, 8 gigs of RAM, 120 gigabyte SSD drive in it. Came with Windows 10 installed, does 4K video, and it was like 280 bucks. And it was recommended by the guy that actually writes the software for OpenBuilds. So I picked that up, and yeah, the black box controller is, I'm very impressed, and the drivers are super beefy. These are heavy duty ish NEMA 23s from Long's Motor. I didn't go with the OpenBuilds motors. These are probably 2 to 3 times the torque of the standard OpenBuilds 23s. And the drivers that are in here, the amperage that they can handle is way above what these can even think about putting out. So that's good. But yeah, this thing's really nice. It's all machined aluminum. It's just really well done, and all the connectors, you know, they give you all these push-in easy connectors for it and stuff, and it's just I was impressed. I have a Planet CNC, you know, big beefy driver board with, you know, external, you know, high powered drivers and all that stuff, and that's what I was going to use for this. And I really thought about it, and I was like, you know, screw it. I'll just, you know, I got this on Father's Day sale. It was already on sale, then they had a Father's Day discount. I think I paid like $110 or something like that for it. Totally worth it. Totally worth it. And I also suggest that you get their power supply set up with this. It comes as a bundle package. This is awesome. You know, in power supplies, you have all those terminals. There's a big machined circuit board thing with a bunch of forks that go into all the different terminals. You just slide it on, tighten down all the terminals, and then all the terminals come out in these different ports on the front. It's just super simple. Like, awesome. Yeah, and of course I added this, you know, because stock, this is actually probably down in here somewhere. So I gained about that much Z height. And with this up here, and then of course the extra plates and all that stuff. Wow, yeah. This thing is, I'd have to say it's probably as rigid as the one that my buddy has that he made out of huge 80-20 aluminum extrusions. This thing is crazy. It's, you know, it's like a bridge or like a wing spark kind of effect. Yeah, because when I first built it, I could grab the top, you know, the Z motor, and move, you know, with force, of course, and you get a lot of leverage there, but I could move it back and forth a decent amount. Now, yeah, you're going to start breaking stuff before that thing starts to move. So I'm happy with that choice. My kit came with the upgraded, their newest version of the limit switches. Some people complain about the old style. These are all made to go with the same connection for the black box, so it's literally just, you're doing screw terminals, no soldering, and running wires. That is awesome and super easy to set up. What else? The e-stop. This is brilliant. The e-stop, I kind of stumbled on it, or had a problem with this at first because I couldn't really figure it out, and then all of a sudden it made sense. There's a port on here on the black box controller for if you have an enclosure around the whole machine and you have a door and you open the door, it pauses the machining operation, stops the spindle, shuts off the vacuum, whatever. So if you need to go inside the enclosure and like shift clamps or something like that, you know, it doesn't kill the job. Well, I was doing some reading and I couldn't really find anything on that, and I left a message on the Open Builds forum, and of course the guy that writes the software for the black box controller, he's on there all the time. You know, you can, there's like a little blinker indicator next to his username, and it tells you if he's online or not. So I just threw a message up on a, you know, forum, started a new thread. He immediately replied, and he showed me exactly how to wire up the relay for the vacuum and the water pump and the e-stop switch to the enclosure door safety thing. So if I hit the e-stop, kills everything, but it keeps the controller alive, because a lot of people run the e-stop to the 110 on their power supply, and it shuts off everything, and then you lose, you know, wherever you were at. You know what I mean? It's just going to restart all your code and everything. So the way he showed me how to do it worked out perfectly. Oh, and on the spindle, like I was telling you, I originally bought a different Open Builds machine. I still have it. That's actually what some of these parts are from, like when I made this, whatever. And it's a smaller, not as beefy machine. Like 2 years ago, I bought this spindle in the VFD, you know, and again, it's only an 800 watt. And like I was telling you, if I was to do it over again, I would get a 1.5 kilowatt spindle because of the larger collet, because I'm stuck with 1/4 inch bits. But that's okay. I'm not, whatever. I can swap it out later. In fact, he'll do just plates with the larger 80 millimeter hole. He'll sell you just the plates to, you know, adapt the other size spindle in there. But what else? I think that's about it. I'm in the middle of making this is like totally jerry rigged up here for my vacuum hose. I just have a piece of parachute cord and a pulley system, but I glued up a substantial inch thick beam of 1-inch birch ply that I'm gonna make a swing arm up in the ceiling that's got pivots on it, and that way it can act like a car wash, you know, up in the ceiling of a car wash, how it's got that hose holder to go over your car, it's gonna act like that. So yeah, and another thing I was telling you is this is totally 100% self-contained. That plug goes into an outlet over there, and that's it. I unplug that, I unclip it's just a bungee cord, and that's it. The entire thing rolls around. So yeah, I just see online all these people make these crazy contraptions, and it's like they have a mobile cart for their computer and their vacuum systems on like a completely separate thing, and you know, it's just my shop's not very big, so this is actually my paint booth that I'm kind of borrowing for now. That's actually the table that when my Cougar gets here, I'm going to build it on there, or assemble it on there, and then that's going to go out to my storage unit after it's all done. But yeah, so for only taking up 40 by 60 of floor space, and have it, you know, totally self-contained, and have, you know, tool storage and all the electronics and everything, it just took a little head scratching and whatever, you know, to get all that going. And when I did this, like I said, it's a torsion box. I did it on top of my glass tabletop, so it's extremely flat, obviously. I can't slide a piece of paper under a level on it. It's super flat. And I rolled on 2 coats of the US Composites resin, and it blushed like crazy and yada yada yada. And I just buzzed the top down with a, you know, DA with like 240 or something like that, just to make it so, you know, markup is easy and blah blah blah. I don't even think I about covered it all. Probably the only drawback to the Open Build stuff, or like, you know, Bulkman, it's the same thing, are these wheels they're a little tricky to set up. But this is now my 3rd machine that I've built that uses these polycarbonate wheels. My 3D printer has them. My foam wing cutter I designed has them, and now this has them. It's just a little bit. You got to kind of dick with them, but it's not bad, especially once you get used to working with them. All right, so I'm gonna cut this short, or cut this short. Yeah, right. It's been almost a half an hour. Oh, and I got a little PC cooling flow indicator because the water pump is so quiet that I wouldn't even know if this thing was running or not. So, as soon as it comes on, this thing just starts, twirling like a little windmill in there. So it kind of shows me what's going on. And yeah, this is my rinky-dink temporary MDF bullshit hose holder that I'm gonna make one out of some 3/4 inch birch ply. So, and then another project is gonna be making end caps for this. I got the aluminum coming. I'll mill some plates to go up there to cap those off. So, anyway, all right, later, man.